In early spring of 202 BC, the overlord Xiang Yu took his own life on the banks of the Wu River. The Han soldiers who had surrounded him, once hesitant to advance, now swarmed his fallen body like ravenous dogs. They trampled each other, even drew swords on one another, all for the prize of his head, a prize worth a fief of 10,000 households. In the end, after dozens of men had died, the spoils were divided among 5 junior officers. Liu Bang, true to his word, divided the fief and awarded it to them. But if you look closely at the records, you'll find 2 deeply meaningful details. First, the 5 men were not ennobled at the same time. The earliest was made a marquis over 2 years later. The latest had to wait for 3. The first to be honored were 2 of Liu Bang's own junior cavalry commanders. The last, who also received the smallest share, was a cavalry commander from Guan Ying's elite unit, equivalent to a manager from a subsidiary company. Second, among the 5, the ones who received the largest shares, 1,900 and 1,700 households respectively, were both, at that time, subordinates of Han Xin. In the corporate structure of the empire, they were employees of another joint stock company. Why would Han Xin's men receive greater rewards than Liu Bang's own? One very important reason is that at the time of their enfeoffment in early 199 BC, Han Xin was not yet dead. Contrary to the concept ingrained in us by many popular history books, Han Xin was not cooked like a stray dog immediately after the Han Dynasty was founded. In fact, he died in 196 BC, a full 6 years after the empire's establishment. During that time, he spent several months as the King of Qi, another year as the King of Chu, and finally lived freely in the capital, Chang'an, for 5 years as the Marquis of Huayin before he was killed by Xiaohe and Empress Lu. In fact, the time he spent as a king and marquis after the founding of the Han Empire was far longer than the time he spent commanding its armies as Liu Bang's Grand Marshal. Also contrary to popular belief, throughout these 6 years, although Liu Bang and Han Xin had several tense confrontations, Liu Bang always left him an out. He may have hesitated over whether to execute Han Xin, but he never made that final decision. It was Empress Lu who wielded the final blow. Liu Bang's ruthlessness, hesitation, and regret in the matter of Han Xin perfectly illustrate the complexity of early Han politics and the uncertainty of the empire's path in its nascent years.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to China Puzzle. The smoke of the Chu-Han contention has cleared, but the foundations of the Han Empire are not yet secure. In the few years that remained to him, the founding emperor, Liu Bang, would spend his days in a whirlwind of political negotiations, purges of former allies, and suppressions of rebellions. And his treatment of the very men who won him the empire, beginning with Han Xin, would become a permanent stain on his legacy and on the early history of his dynasty. But what is the real story? Was Liu Bang simply a petty man who broke his promises? Now, let us peel back the mists of history, year by year, case by case, to decipher the hidden political logic behind the first great purge of the Han Dynasty.
After Xiang Yu's defeat and death, Liu Bang sent his generals to mop up the remaining pockets of resistance in the former state of Chu. He himself, however, chose to travel north from Gaixia to the city of Dingtao. Liu Bang did not come alone. According to the records, not only did the main Han army follow him, but all the other vassal kings of his coalition, including Yingbu and Peng Yue, were also present. Han Xin, King of Qi, was of course no exception. Why come to Dingtao? Because this was the headquarters of Han Xin, King of Qi. The histories state, returning to Dingtao, he galloped into the King of Qi's camp and seized his army. Once again, Liu Bang used a sudden surprise maneuver to strip Han Xin of his military command. On the surface, this seems like a carbon copy of the incident a few years earlier, when Liu Bang had rushed alone to Han Xin's camp at Xiuwu to seize his troops. However, a closer analysis of these few short sentences reveals several inconsistencies. First, at this time, Liu Bang was not yet emperor. On what authority did he seize the King of Qi's army? At Xiuwu, Han Xin was still the left chancellor and grand marshal of the state of Han. It was the king's right to reclaim his command. But now, Han Xin was the king of Qi, nominally Liu Bang's equal. In theory, Liu Bang had no authority to take over the Qi army. Second, at Xiuwu, Han Xin's army included at least 30,000 of Liu Bang's own troops. This time, however, the Han units previously assigned to Han Xin were elsewhere. Guan Ying's elite cavalry was mopping up in Chu, and Cao Ken was stationed back in Qi to maintain order. So, when Liu Bang seized the king of Qi's army, he wasn't simply recalling his own men. He was genuinely taking command of the armies of Wei, Dai, Zhao, and Qi that Han Xin had conquered. Third, of the 600,000 troops who participated in the siege of Gaixia, 300,000 were Han Xin's. This means that among the forces gathered at Dingtao, Han Xin's Qi army was likely the main contingent. So, on what grounds could Liu Bang seize it? And how? With the help of the other vassal kings like Yingbu and Peng Yue? That is neither logical nor plausible. Let's look at a later record. Just 1 year later, when someone accused Han Xin of plotting rebellion, Liu Bang prepared to lead an army against him. Chen Ping dissuaded him, arguing, "Your Majesty's troops are not as elite as Chu's, and your generals are not as capable as Han Xin." If Liu Bang had already seized Han Xin's army at Dingtao, where did Han Xin's elite Chu troops come from in just 1 year? Finally, let's look at the very next entry in the records. He transferred Han Xin, king of Qi, to be the king of Chu with his capital at Xiapi. And another entry. In the first month, the vassal kings, generals, and ministers jointly requested to honor the king of Han as emperor.
These historical entries are crucial, but their sequence is even more so. Only by becoming emperor did Liu Bang gain the authority to transfer the king of Qi to the throne of Chu, and only then could he possibly seize an army that did not originally belong to the state of Han, and only as the king of Chu could Han Xin plausibly retain an elite force independent of the central army. But the precondition for all of this was the consensus of the vassal kings, generals, and ministers to acclaim the king of Han as emperor. Why? On what grounds?
When we piece all these clues together, a more politically logical timeline emerges. After Xiang Yu's death, Liu Bang, wary of Han Xin's immense military power, summoned all the vassal kings to Han Xin's camp at Dingtao under the pretext of fulfilling his promises of enfeoffment. With both sides possessing comparable strength, a temporary military balance was achieved. Liu Bang couldn't move against Han Xin, and Han Xin couldn't launch a surprise attack on Liu Bang and the other kings. It was in this delicate, brief equilibrium that intense political negotiations took place. First, Liu Bang honored his promise to carve up the lands east of the Hangu Pass. The other kings and generals were all handsomely rewarded with larger territories and new titles. Second, Liu Bang made a special arrangement for Han Xin. The official reason given was that since the line of the righteous king of Chu had died out, Han Xin, being a native of Chu, should be made its new king. But in reality, when Liu Bang was trapped at Guling, the deal he had offered Han Xin was all the lands from Chen to the Eastern Sea, which was essentially the territory of Chu. Moreover, at that time, Han Xin's kingdom of Qi comprised 73 counties. A huge state, to be sure, but it paled in comparison to the kingdom of Chu he was now given. Later, after Han Xin was demoted, Liu Bang split his Chu kingdom into two, totaling 89 counties. This was a massive territory, a superstate second to none. It was a fat piece of meat that Liu Bang had to offer. It both fulfilled his promise and effectively broke up Han Xin's power base. As the king of Chu, it would be inappropriate for him to continue leading the armies of Qi, Zhao, and Wei, wouldn't it? The Qi army would now become the emperor's direct subordinates. As for the remaining troops, would they be willing to follow a king of Chu to the land of Chu? And it was a deal Han Xin had to accept. Since Liu Bang had not broken his word, Han Xin had no moral grounds to oppose him. Besides, Han Xin was not an ambitious man who craved the imperial throne. He simply wished for land, a title, and to return home in glory. The title of King of Chu gave him the perfect opportunity to achieve fame and retire.
And so, a compromise was reached. The vassal kings at Dingtao acclaimed Liu Bang, king of Han, as the emperor. The Han Dynasty was officially founded. Han Xin, king of Qi, became Han Xin, king of Chu. He journeyed south to his new kingdom with a small retinue of elite troops, while the bulk of the Qi army was taken by Liu Bang. This is the logical truth behind the seizure of the army and the acclamation of the emperor at Dingtao.
After ascending the throne at Dingtao, Liu Bang did not cease his campaigns. The histories record that immediately after, the king of Linjiang, who had been enfeoffed by Xiang Yu, rebelled. This is a classic case of, if you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. The first king of Linjiang had been a high official of Chu. He was one of the 4 kings involved in the assassination of Chu's rightful ruler. But that was the extent of his military action. During the Chu-Han contention, he never sent a single soldier to aid Xiang Yu. In fact, he had died of illness 2 years prior. The current king was his son. So, this weak, self-preserving little kingdom decided to rebel at the very moment Xiang Yu was dead. The Han Dynasty was founded, the empire was settled, and Liu Bang commanded hundreds of thousands of battle-hardened troops. Whatever the reason, Liu Bang sent 2 of his top generals to besiege the kingdom for several months. The king of Linjiang eventually surrendered, was dragged to the capital, and executed. His kingdom was, of course, abolished and turned into a commandery directly administered by the central government. After pacifying Linjiang, Liu Bang could finally return in triumph. In the 5th month of that year, at a grand banquet in Luoyang, he gave his famous speech. In devising strategies in the command tent that determine victory 1,000 miles away, I am not as good as Zhang Liang. In governing the state, pacifying the people, and ensuring an unbroken supply line, I am not as good as Xiao He. In commanding an army of 1,000,000, winning every battle, and taking every city, I am not as good as Han Xin. These 3 are all heroes among men. I was able to use them, and that is why I conquered the empire. You see, at this point in time, Liu Bang's mindset seems to have relaxed a bit. He could even openly praise Han Xin's military genius. This suggests that, at least for now, he did not believe that he and Han Xin were locked in a fight to the death. After this speech, Liu Bang, at Zhang Liang's suggestion, established his capital in the Central Plains and began construction of the great city of Chang'an. It was at this moment that he issued a general order to demobilize the armies. But there was an interesting policy distinction. Soldiers willing to settle in Guangzhong were granted 12 years of tax and labor exemption. Those who wished to return to their homes in the east were granted only 6 years. The choice was obvious. The purpose, self-evident. A few months later, Zhang Tu, the king of Yan, rebelled. This was an even more absurd version of the Linjiang rebellion. Zhang Tu, a king enfeoffed by Xiang Yu, had shrewdly surrendered after Han Xin conquered the north. He had even sent his own troops to join Liu Bang's coalition against Chu. He had personally attended the acclamation at Dingtao. And now, at this moment, with the empire settled, he rebelled. Does that make any sense? What makes even less sense is the result. It was said that Zhang Tu invaded the region of Dai. Liu Bang then personally led an expeditionary force and, in a very short time, broke the Yan army's defensive lines and captured Zhang Tu alive. This entire campaign took place within the kingdom of Yan. Only after Zhang Tu was captured did Liu Bang order his generals to turn towards Dai to mop up the remnants. Some have speculated that Zhang Tu rebelled out of resentment, being the only vassal king at Dingtao who received no new benefits. Others suggest he was colluding with the Xiongnu nomads to the north.
But the truth is lost to the vanished records, leaving only 2 deeply suspicious facts. After Zhang Tu was captured, Liu Bang appointed a new king and chancellor of Yan, his own childhood friend Lu Wan, and his own brother-in-law Fan Kuai. And who was it that had first accused Zhang Tu of plotting rebellion? His own chancellor, the very same general he had sent to aid Liu Bang's army. There is one more detail. For his great merit in the Yan campaign, one of Liu Bang's generals, Li Shang, was appointed Right Chancellor, a position temporarily even higher than Xiao He's, to manage the military affairs of the entire empire.
After entrusting the kingdom of Yan to his childhood friend and brother-in-law, Liu Bang returned to Luoyang. Along the way, a small incident occurred, so small that many historical analyses overlook it. One of Xiang Yu's former commanders, Li Ji, had rebelled. There are no other records of this man, Li Ji, before or after this event. All we know for certain is that he was the Duke of Chen, appointed by Xiang Yu to guard the strategic city of Chen. Later, during the Guling-Chenxia campaign, where Liu Bang's army annihilated Xiang Yu's main force, Li Ji likely surrendered the city of Chen. For this, he was rewarded with a marquisate in Yingchuan. Consider this. At that time, not even Liu Bang's most loyal followers like Xiao He, Zhang Liang, or Cao had been made marquises. Yet this surrendered Chu general was elevated in a single step. So, it should come as no surprise that after eliminating the vassal kings of Linjiang and Yan, kings Xiang Yu had created, Liu Bang's next targets would be surrendered Chu commanders like Li Ji. The histories say that Li Ji rebelled because Liu Bang summoned all the marquises of the empire to a meeting in Luoyang, and Li Ji, out of fear, dared not go and thus raised his army. Again, a ludicrous reason, and an equally brief process. Liu Bang led his troops to attack him, and Li Ji fled. Li Ji's commandery of Yingchuan was absorbed by Liu Bang and later given to one of his most loyal, long-serving followers, the King Xin of Han. Then, Liu Bang issued another edict, ordering a nationwide manhunt for all fugitive commanders of the former state of Chu. For everyone with a background in the state of Chu, this was a chilling reminder. And there were many such men, including Chen Ping and Han Xin. Just over a month later, in early 201 BC, as if following a script, someone accused Han Xin of plotting rebellion. Some say this was a baseless charge, arguing that the histories never present any evidence of his treason. In fact, they do. The records of the Grand Historian state it plainly in the chronological tables. He was demoted to Marquis of Huayan for the crime of mobilizing troops without authorization. In short, Han Xin, as the King of Chu, had committed some procedural error in the raising and moving of his troops. Someone seized upon this flaw and branded it as treason. So who discovered this military procedural flaw? The records are silent. But we must remember who, at that time, was in charge of managing the military affairs of the entire empire with the rank of Right Chancellor, Li Shang. And Li Shang's older brother was Li Yiji, the man whom Han Xin had indirectly caused to be boiled alive. So it is not hard to understand why, when someone accused Han Xin of rebellion, all the high-ranking generals, the military establishment, chimed in, "What else is there to do? Seize the punk! Bury him alive!" And it was Chen Ping, a man who also had a Chu background, who came forward to dissuade Liu Bang, ultimately devising the plan for Liu Bang to feign a tour of the Yunmeng Marsh and summon Han Xin to meet him at Chen. If Han Xin came, he could be easily dealt with. If he dared not to come, he would be branding himself a rebel, just like Li Ji, and Liu Bang would lead his victorious army into Chu. Fortunately, Han Xin, after much hesitation, consideration, and calculation, decided to trust in Liu Bang's character. He went to Chen to greet Liu Bang and was promptly arrested and put in chains. Han Xin's exact thoughts are lost to history. We only have two details. First, upon receiving Liu Bang's summons, he did consider armed resistance. But, believing himself to be innocent, he thought, "I have done no wrong. Liu Bang has no reason, no moral justification to seize me. On what grounds could he kill me?" He even, in an attempt to please Liu Bang, killed the fugitive Chu general Zhongli Mo, who had taken refuge with him, earning himself a black mark in history.
But Han Xin, the Immortal of War, truly lacked the political mind of a Liu Bang. He could only think in the two extremes of his own guilt or innocence, and whether Liu Bang could or could not kill him. He did not realize that in the eyes of a politician, there are 1,000 shades of gray in between. And Liu Bang was a grand magician, a master of walking that tightrope.
On the very day Han Xin was arrested, Liu Bang issued an edict. Some men have been in the army for 9 years and may not yet be accustomed to the rule of law, or may have broken the law due to old habits. For some, this has led to capital offences. I take great pity on them. Therefore, I grant a general amnesty to the empire. What does this mean? Who had committed a capital offence? Who was not yet accustomed to the rule of law? Who was being pardoned? Is it not obvious? When Liu Bang finally returned to the capital with his army and Han Xin in chains, he officially pardoned the King of Chu, demoting him to the Marquis of Huayin and ordering him to reside permanently in the capital. It was perhaps only then that Han Xin understood that his guilt and innocence, his pardon and punishment, were all subject to Liu Bang's political interpretation. This is the true meaning behind the famous exchange when, later, Liu Bang asked Han Xin how many men he could command, and Han Xin uttered the immortal line, "Your Majesty cannot command soldiers, but you are adept at commanding generals." This was not sarcasm, nor was it flattery. It was a sincere, objective admission that in the realm of politics, Liu Bang was a heaven-sent genius. After this, the kingdom of Chu was dismembered into 2 smaller kingdoms and given to members of the Liu family. With the former state of Qi already given to his eldest son, and the state of Yan in the hands of his childhood friend, Liu Bang now held the 2 most important territories of the East in the hands of men he could trust. He could finally breathe a sigh of relief, and he could finally turn his attention to the pack of hungry wolves in his own camp. By now, a full year had passed since his enthronement at Dingtao. The generals who had won him the empire had been waiting for their rewards for far too long. Their resentment was boiling over. Seeing that a mutiny was imminent, Zhang Liang offered Liu Bang a piece of advice. He suggested first ennobling Yong Qi, the man Liu Bang despised most, the man who had betrayed him in his hometown, as a marquis, to temporarily quell the general's complaints. Then, after much intense calculation, in the 2nd month of 201 BC, the great enfeoffment finally began. First, of course, was the ranking of merit. All the generals believed that Cao Can's merit was the greatest. He had fought for years, was covered in over 70 wounds, and should receive the highest honor. But Liu Bang disagreed. He personally proposed that the chancellor, Xiao He, should be ranked first. The records of the Grand Historian says that the military commanders immediately began to argue with the emperor. The emperor reasoned with them, other civil officials came out in support, and a logical argument was presented that even without 100 men like Cao Can, the Han would not have been diminished. But Xiao He, who governed the heartland, was the indispensable pillar of the state. And then the military commanders were persuaded. This is certainly a fine piece of literary flair from Sima Qian, but the reality was surely not so simple. The generals could be suppressed, but they could not be persuaded. A more realistic fragment of history is this one. The exalted emperor asked, "My lords, do you know of hunting?" They replied, "We do." "Do you know of hunting dogs?" "We do." The exalted emperor said, "In a hunt, the ones who chase down and kill the beasts are the dogs, but the one who tracks the beasts and points out their location is the man. You, my lords, were merely able to run down the beasts. Your merit is that of a dog. But as for Xiao He, he was the one who tracked and pointed. His merit is that of a man." With his unique gangster flair, Liu Bang cut short all debate. "You are all just dogs. How can a dog compete with its master? Xiao He, at the very least, is my man of merit. I recognize him." Behind these roguish words was Liu Bang's immense determination to suppress the military faction and weaken the power of his generals. This determination, combined with his own brilliant military record, temporarily silenced all opposition.
Later, when it came to the specific calculation of rewards, another problem arose. Cao Zan's military merits were indeed so outstanding that they amounted to a fief of 10,000 households. Xiao He, no matter how they calculated, only had 8,000. What was to be done? Liu Bang said, "Simple, grant Xiaohe an extra 2,000 households." The reason? Reason, Liu Bang thought for a moment. When I was a low-ranking official escorting conscripts to the capital, the other officials all gave me some travel money. But Xiaohe was especially good to me. He always gave me an extra 200 coins. He is a good man. Is that reason enough?